Problems are just a natural part of life. They are absolutely 100% unavoidable. You are going to face problems, obstacles, challenges, hurdles, headaches, whatever you want to call them, throughout your entire life. So, what do you do about it? I mean, you can't put an end to a problem. Well, today I'm going to share with you three different ways to turn your problems into a success, because a problem doesn't have to totally overwhelm you and suffocate you and make you feel absolutely miserable. There are ways to move through these and progress through every problem that comes your way in a really powerful way and to come out with a strong victory. Stick with me to the end, and you are going to feel refreshed, rejuvenated, and ready to overcome anything that comes your way.
Welcome to the Ask Me How I Know show. I'm your host, Julie Holly, and I'm so excited you're here. Ask Me How I Know is the only podcast in the multifamily niche replicating what takes place outside the walls of a seminar. Remember when we used to get together like that? This is like the lobby where honest, unscripted conversations take place and transformation happens. We'll talk about practical problem solving in the multifamily niche as well as overcoming mental roadblocks. This episode is brought to you by Three Keys Investments. Three Keys Investments is dedicated to helping people like you, you, enter the multifamily investment space to build passive income and legacy wealth. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed Ask Me How I Know, I'd be honored if you did. Thanks so much for joining me today, and now for our featured guest.
Thanks so much for joining me. I wanted to let you know, recently I was talking with another podcasting friend. I happen to have a lot of friends who are podcasters, a natural byproduct, right, of being a podcaster. And this friend and I were talking, and I said, wow, I have the best listeners, but I don't actually know my listeners. And guess what? You are really important to me. So if you haven't reached out, I would love to get to know you personally. I would love to connect with you. Feel free, drop me a message, direct message through LinkedIn or through Facebook Messenger or Instagram. I'm on all of those platforms now, and I'm fairly active. So feel free, reach out to me and let me know, who you are and that you listen to this show, because you're important to me. And I want to create content that serves you. So you can also let me know, hey, I'd really love to get some content around this part of investing or this part of mindset, and I'd love to create that. Now, if you are a listener of a long time and you haven't left a review, I would be absolutely smitten if you left a review and let me know what you were enjoying about the show. And it also helps me get some really amazing guests out on here, because it helps boost all those algorithms and everything. More importantly, it totally completely fills my heart and makes me happy when I know that I am serving you well. All right. Well, you turned into this episode because you were like, oh my gosh, problems. Yes, they're a real thing. Death, taxes, and problems, they are a given. And so you tuned into this episode because you wanted to know, Julie, what are these three ways that I can overcome and become a success despite the challenges, obstacles, hurdles that come my way? Well, let's dive into it. As we've already discussed, problems, obstacles, challenges, hurdles, obstacle, like whatever you want to call them, they are a 100% given. They will happen in life. And oftentimes, when we're in that situation, we feel overwhelmed by what's before us. We might feel a bit embarrassed. There might be some shame involved. We might be intimidated. And if it's a challenge that we've had to work through for a prolonged period of time, we start to feel fatigued and exhausted because it's just taking its toll. When I think about that, I think about health issues, chronic health issues that people deal with. Those are real challenges that people face. I think about relationship conflicts that people face on an ongoing basis that create these type of challenges and hurdles. So some of these, depending on what your obstacle is, it's going to require a little bit different thinking. So let's go through some of these steps. Number one, a lot of times we feel overwhelmed because we don't even know where to start. When I was a classroom teacher, I learned this concept of giving students a place to start. Everybody just needs like their start spot because we see a task or we see a problem, but we don't know where to enter into a solution sequence, right? And so creating or finding that starting spot is really critical to working through any challenge that you are facing. Now, we overcomplicate this quite frequently. Our starting spot doesn't have to be an exact, like, it's not like entering a maze where you have to go in at this point in order to finish the maze correctly. Okay. The sequence on a problem solution, spectrum isn't, well, you have to go from point A to point B. And if you do not follow this exactly, it is doomed and it will never work out. It really isn't like that. It's more like baking, where you can, have this margin of error, if you will. Of I always think when I bake muffins, even the recipe book I use, it says you have a 20% margin for error. So when you are entering in and looking for that start point for that sequence, don't stress yourself out about, oh my gosh, I have to find the exact right spot. You don't. You just simply have to choose the very first step. That first step is usually within your grasp. So, as I've been working through underwriting a particular like motel conversion into apartments, it seemed very daunting and overwhelming to me. And I just determined, what's the very first step? Well, okay, let me just pull the first numbers from this. Okay. And I'm going to find the very easiest, simplest step I can take. I can call the broker. If this was something when I was a classroom teacher and I was working with a student and I was facing a challenge with that student, that first step might mean, well, it definitely was, wow, I'm going to get on the student's level, sit down on my knees, and talk eye to eye and say, hey, I noticed this problem. So, the very first thing that we need to do is just find the smallest bit of action that we can take to get ourselves started and to get us moving. I'm not going to lie. One of the most powerful things that you can do in this arena is simply ask for help. You don't have to go through this alone. You don't have to have everything within you in order to go through this sequence. In fact, consider the problem solution sequence as the opportunity. It's a journey. And along that journey, the reason we're often facing a complication is because we don't have everything that we need. And so we're facing this challenge. So as we go through that problem solution sequence, we end up gaining more knowledge, more understanding, more experience, and it builds our wheelhouse. You might think about this as, or you might think of this as kids learning to walk, right? You have to, we always hear this. First, they're rolling over, then babies are rolling over, then they're crawling, and then they're stumbling, and then they're walking, and then they're running. If you've ever gone through this as a parent, you know it's a very deliberate process. And I have yet to meet a child, and I see adults all the time walking around. So most people don't just quit and give up. They go through the problem solution sequence even that early on. So they had parents or adults in their life that were probably giving them some balance, or maybe they had a table or some type of thing. We can invite that into our very own lives, right? So we can invite people into our lives, we can ask for help, we can also look for some stabilizing objects in our life. If this is a financial challenge, maybe I'm looking at something to stabilize my finances. If I'm doing a Dave Ramsey debt snowball effect, if I'm trying to come out of debt and I've mismanaged money. So you're looking for the smallest actionable steps that you can take. It's amazing what happens the very moment you take action. So visualize with me for a moment. If you were at a shopping mall, or I love airports, you're at the airport and there's one of those escalator people mover type things. The moment you step on that, you start moving. and you're not going to stop moving because you're on it, like unless it has a mechanical failure, of course. But I'm speaking to all the skeptics out there, right? But the point is that when you take a point of action, you will continue, and it's just going to carry you away. One action will naturally open the gates to the next action that you can take, and it will lead to the next one. Don't stress yourself out by trying to look 20 steps ahead or 5 steps ahead. Look at the next 3 steps. Really, truly look at the very first step, and then kind of look at, well, maybe what are the next 2 steps I could do beyond that, so that you have 3 steps. But be advised, step number one is going to reveal that step number 2 or 3 might actually turn out different than you planned. But just having those mentally can give us a little bit of a runway to keep the momentum and get us going. Step one, just take action. The very smallest step that you can take is the only step you need to take, and that's your starting point. This one's naturally into the second important step of turning every obstacle into a victory. The next step is simply allow yourself the space to grow. So often, particularly in Western culture, we just expect that we're supposed to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps and get going. And the reality is that we have to grow. Just like I was speaking about the child that, the baby that's learning to crawl, walk, and run, you need to understand that that is a repeating process throughout all of your life. It will never, ever stop until the moment you are 6 feet under or whatever that looks like. Okay. So you need to accept right now that, oh, I'm just going through this growth cycle. There is no magic that happens when you turn 18, when you're in a quote adult, okay, or when you get your first career position or your first big paycheck. There isn't some magic moment in your life where you are going to step out of the growth sequence. I don't know why, but I feel that we are conditioned to believe that at some point we're going to come to this stopping point and we're going to just like, have arrived or something. And the reality is, there is no destination that you are trying to arrive at. Life is a journey, except that you are going to continually grow. And when you have that mindset, it naturally shifts you into this different state where it's like, oh, I can grow and this is good. Oh, I'm just learning something new. Let the learning lead to joy. Be curious throughout this, problem solution sequence. Allow yourself to lean into curiosity versus doubt and overwhelm and frustration. Like, lean into that curiosity. I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder why I'm learning this. Hmm, how is this going to serve other people just because I've learned this? These are really proactive ways to look at that sequence and to enjoy that growth process. And that naturally leads into the third tip that I have for turning every challenge into a success. And that third tip is, don't let it rule your life. Life is short. Life is really fragile, so much more fragile than we realize and understand. And so we have to be really careful as we're going through the sequence to not let it consume every bit of our life. I think this is one of the greatest challenges that we face. Currently, I have a almost teenager, so we're just a few months away from actually hitting those quote teen years, chronologically speaking, but we've already entered into those teen years. And that creates this natural growth sequence in my own life, right? So, relationally speaking, it's like, wow, okay, we're here. I could allow myself to be absolutely consumed with the challenges that this can present in life. And that could lead to looking back in the future, that could lead to a lot of regret. We cannot go back in time. We can't press rewind like on those old VHS tapes or cassette tapes, right? You could easily rewind it to that exact spot, but you can't rewind on life. And so it's really important that you honor the gift of the day that you are given. Make something special about that day. For those of you who are entrepreneurs and growing a business can be absolutely consuming. It's fun, it's exciting, it's overwhelming, it's challenging. It's such a mixed bag when you are building a business, and it can absolutely suck all of your life away. And it's so critical that we simply press pause and say, this is an all consuming process, and I need to press pause and enjoy the people around me. I need to press pause and I need to be present. I need to press pause and simply give myself space to breathe and catch my breath. Much of life is more, it's a marathon. And so we can't be in this all out sprint constantly. Sometimes we are going to be sprinting, sometimes we're going to be jogging. But guess what? We can also slow to a walk and catch our breath. Allow yourself the space to do that so that you are enjoying every moment. I know for me, on a personal level, as a mother, as a mama bear, it's there can be some outside pressures that moms need to show up in a certain way, and um, I've chosen to do motherhood in a different way that doesn't always resonate with everyone, every mother out there. And it's a matter of, I need to serve my children really well, but my identity isn't wrapped up in my children. My identity isn't wrapped up in my business. My identity isn't wrapped up in my marriage. So my identity isn't tied and connected to these relationships. Those relationships complement the journey. So maybe I'm taking, an hour and a half every once in a while and going out and mountain biking by myself. That's okay to do. It's okay to slow, to walk, to give yourself space to breathe and decompress. It's very important and critical along the journey to figure out what is going to fuel you so that you can respond in a really healthy, proactive way. I hope that these three thoughtful ways of approaching the challenges, obstacles, hurdles, frustrations, etc. I hope that these, three ways are ways that are getting you to think a little differently about whatever it is that you are facing. If this is serving you well, would you do me the honor and privilege of sharing this content? If you gained something from this, please share this with somebody else. This podcast only grows organically through awesome listeners like you helping promote it. So please share it over on your social platforms, and just send a text link to a friend so that they can be inspired, they can be encouraged, and they can grow in a whole unique way. I appreciate you and thank you for taking the time to listen. Remember, if you haven't left a review or if you haven't gone over to the website, check out julieholly.com. Download the best books reading list if you're looking for something great to read. And those books include books for kids as well. So lots to choose from, including all the books on my What I Want to Read as well. So maybe you have a book that you would like me to read that you said, and you're thinking, Julie, this book is so good. Add this to your list right away. Please shoot me a message. Let me know. Until next time, you are just one step away. Go find your freedom.
Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Ask Me How I Know. This episode was brought to you by Three Keys Investments. They are dedicated to helping people like you, you, my awesome listeners, develop passive income and legacy wealth through multifamily investing. Feel free to check out their website, threekeysinvestments.com, to see if there's an offering that will help your portfolio grow and meet all of your needs. If you haven't already rated, reviewed, subscribed, liked, all of those bells and whistles, I would be absolutely honored if you would do that for Ask Me How I Know. Thanks again, and go make it a great day.